Top 10 Best Netflix Original Series You Have to Watch Right Now. The 2020 global coronavirus pandemic lockdown has brought more hours to fill for almost everyone. And that means more time to dive into Netflix to discover your next TV obsession. The American streaming giant cranks out a lot of original content, with billions of dollars invested to roll out dozens of new original series and movies every year. But not every release can be an interesting hit like Stranger Thing's or have the star power that Ozark has. To help you cut the corner without dedicating your nightlife to a full binge, endless dive into the Netflix catalog, here are top 10 Netflix original series that will beat your imagination. Number 10. The Keepers. The Keepers are a streaming service true crime streak that continued a haunting investigation into the murder of Sister Kathy Sesnick, a nun and Baltimore school teacher who was found near a garbage dump in the winter of 1969. The documentary got a spike when two of her former students, Gemma Hoskins and Abby Schaub, as they try to uncover why someone would murder her. Fast forward, the documentary expands from Sesnick's murder to the atmosphere of Seton-Keough High School, where it becomes apparent that sexual abuse was a systemic scandal Sesnick may have tried to stop. Created by Ryan White, The Keepers is a disturbing case study for those interested in seeing how institutions work to cover up corruption. Number 9. The Witcher. Better known as a trilogy of great games, this fantasy series is an adaptation of the Witcher books by Andrzej Sapkowski, an ideal replacement for Game of Thrones, with Henry Cavill bringing big star power to the show's monster hunter, Geralt of Rivia. Featuring a pretty dense, decade-spanning arc, the best parts of this first season are Monster of the Week episodes where Geralt faces a beast that ended with a twist of sorts. Though The Witcher didn't try as much as Thrones did to be prestige TV, that's pretty refreshing. Enjoy spending time with its likable characters, get to understand its world, and look forward to The Witcher Season 2, which is in the works for 2021. And if you're struggling to follow the show's unusual time-hopping structure, check out The Witcher Timeline to figure it all out. Number 8. Tiger King. Before its release, several TV shows were vying for the title of Netflix crime show, but since Tiger King came out, it's no longer a contest. The series took a closer look into the community of exotic animal keepers, hiding in plain sight with so many crazy moments, twists, and real shockers in a single episode that made it extremely difficult to keep track of every jaw-dropping revelation that each episode comes with. Every episode starts with an epiphany and ends on a cliffhanger as they get deeper into the world of big cats. The drama unfolds when Joe Exotic, Nicolas Cage, who at one point owned the largest private zoo in the United States, encountered his mortal enemy, Carol Baskin, who runs Big Cat Rescue in Florida. Beyond being insane to watch, Tiger King pulls off the delicate task of telling this stranger-than-fiction story with both empathy and a critical eye. No one comes out of it unscathed. Number 7. Street Food. If you love the best cooking shows but you're tired of seeing buttoned-up celebrity chefs in pristine kitchens, a show that examines the food of the people may just be all you need for the time. Talking Street Food. Street Food travels the world to explore how chefs from various cultures cook street food. The first season focuses on various Asian countries including Thailand, Japan, and Singapore, interviewing experts and filming the local vendors. This being a David Gelb production, the cinematography is stunning and the interviews with local chefs add a personal story to the cuisine on display. So what are you waiting for? Come for the entrancing shots of chicken skewers sizzling on a grill and stay for the insights into the rich customs of cultures of Asian cities. Number 6. Dark. While it drew a lot of comparisons to the Stranger Thing's due to its small-town setting and teenage protagonists, the German Netflix series Dark is its own thing. A strange, high-concept story set in a town where everyone has their secrets. The saga began in Winden, a small wooded town near a nuclear reactor, when a teenager, Jonas Lewis Hoffman, returns to school having spent time getting therapy following his father's suicide, only to find the town in a state of shock over a new tragedy, the disappearance of his fellow student, Eric Obendorf. Eric is not the first child to go missing in Winden's history, nor will he be the last, as Jonas and his friends soon find themselves on the edge of a mystery that spans generations. If you're looking forward to an eerie drama, dense with mysteries, and complicated characters, Dark is your go-to series. Number 5. The Haunting of Hill House. A man unwittingly left behind what is most important in his life only to recount the lost. Talking about Hugh Crane in The Haunting of Hill House. One dark and ominous night, Hugh Crane, Henry Thomas, gathers his children and flees their vast Gothic mansion, leaving his wife Olivia, Carla Gugino, behind. That night, Olivia dies, and her death ruled a suicide, one that runs wild with stories of the haunted Hill House. Whether writing a successful memoir about the haunting of Hill House or abusing drugs to numb the pain, the 5 Crane children, Stephen, Shirley, Theo, Nell, and Luke, all grew up dealing with their trauma in varying ways. As adults, the Crane siblings are barely on speaking terms, until a tragedy forces them all back together, and back to Hill House. Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House is a character-driven story, delving into the psychological problems of its many protagonists. He orchestrates some intense scares in the first episode in what seems to be real ghosts haunting the Cranes. Number 4. Never Have I Ever. Never Have I Ever is a coming-of-age dramedy about a young woman who, after the death of her father, decides she wants to change her life and elevate her social status. However, Devi Vishwakumar, Maitreyi Ramkirishan, an Indian girl raised in America, finds that her family and friends aren't fully on board with this renaissance. Considered a standout in a crowded field of coming-of-age dramedies on Netflix, Never Have I Ever delightfully balances the traditional perils of high school, like teen romance and popularity, with the challenges of grief, being a first-generation American, and finding yourself in a crowd of loved ones. Number 3. Alias Grace. Adapted by Sarah Polley from a Margaret Atwood novel, which itself is based on a true story, Alias Grace is set in Canada in the middle of the 19th century, where a house servant, Grace Marks, Sarah Godone, has been convicted of a double murder. After spending time in a mental asylum and while serving time in prison, an early version of a therapist is called in to try and discern if Grace is guilty, innocent, lying, or telling the truth. Grace's account of the murders is as confounding to the viewer as it is to the doctor, but that is not the point. The point of Alias Grace is to illustrate how the men in her life and the lives of the women around her have tyrannized and abused them. They are the product of that abuse, of a system controlled by men, and if a woman were to rise and murder her terrorizer, who could blame her? It's a smart, brilliantly acted, and entertaining series, but more than that, it's an important one for these times. Number 2. Stranger Thingz. The opening sequence of Stranger Thingz lays out the TV show's sci-fi aspirations clearly. As a scientist flees down an empty hallway, pursued by some unseen force, he was eventually nabbed as he waits for elevator doors to close. From mysterious creatures to a secret government agency, the show is a stew made of various influences from the 80s, with a group of kids having adventures around their rural town, teens experimenting with drugs, and peer pressure. There are pieces of Stephen King, Steven Spielberg, and John Hughes strewn throughout Stranger Thingz, and the result is a show that will feel immediately familiar to people who grew up with that source material. The show is not shallow in its emulation either. The acting and direction itself are superb. Number 1. Ozark. Having a combination of Breaking Bad and Bloodline, Ozark sees a money launderer, Jason Bateman, and his wife, Laura Linney, move from Chicago to backwoods Missouri to clean $8 million in 3 months, lest their entire family be killed by a Mexican drug cartel. It's not a fun show, and it's barely entertaining. But like Bloodline, it's the kind of series where the viewer is anxious to binge through it just to see if the antagonist will survive and how. It's a seedy, well-written, well-acted series, and Bateman is terrific, but the entire point of Ozark is to put the viewer through the ringer. It's tense and stressful, so we don't watch for resolution, we watch for its relief. And that is it on the list. No other Netflix original series we didn't mention in this video? Let us know in the comments section below. And for more curated streaming Netflix recommendations, hit the red button below this video to subscribe and the bell button to get notified of our new videos.